Scorpio. Venus and Scorpio. What's up, YouTube? It's Sydney Island here. That's Island with the Y, not an S. And if it's not obvious by what I just sang, this video is all about Venus and Scorpio. Okay, so let's jump right into it by explaining what the planet Venus represents. Okay, so the planet Venus is all about love, romance, love affairs, beauty, material possessions. And the planet Venus rules Taurus and Libra. So, Venus in Scorpio, this placement is in detriment. And that means that this is not always the most favorable position for Venus to be in, simply because Scorpio is the opposite sign to Taurus, and Venus is Taurus's planet. So, going to have a little bit of issues here. And that only means, don't worry, it only means that Venus and Scorpio, you have a little bit more karma and a little bit more, let's say you would deal with a lot more emotional turbulence, a lot more stress. You would have a lot more transformation that you will be doing in this placement, because the sign Scorpio is all about transformation, right? Rebirth. So you might go through some type of really intense relationship so that you can grow and so that the other person can grow, right? So let's just jump right into what Venus in Scorpio is all about. If you have Venus in Scorpio, your sun sign is most likely going to be either Scorpio, Libra, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Capricorn. So people who have a Venus in Scorpio, they take love very, very seriously. Okay, it ain't no game. Okay, like for example, I have a Venus in Gemini. Love is more like a game for us. We're just playing around. It's nothing serious. But a Venus in Scorpio, it's very serious. And how dare you ever think that it's not when it comes to Venus and Scorpio, okay? They're intense lovers, okay? And to a point where they can be possessive, very possessive of their partners. They're made for relationships. They can do it, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy with this placement. It is difficult to have a Venus in Scorpio. It's difficult to date a Venus in Scorpio as well, or to be in a committed relationship with a Venus in Scorpio. Venus in Scorpio has no problem committing. They love long-term relationships. They're in it for the long haul. They don't do quick little flings and then we moving on. They need something they can hold on to, something they can grip on, something real, something solid. But they will not commit to you right away. They will not open up to you right away, okay? They need to trust you. You need to show them that there's something in you that they can trust. Because Venus and Scorpio people have some serious trust issues, okay? They're always suspicious of people, so they will probe you, okay? They're very observant, very analytical, and they will probe you, and they will do little tests on you, you know, test you in different ways to see if you can handle them and to see if you can handle their heat and their fire. Because although Scorpio is a water sign, they can be very fiery since the planet Mars rules Scorpio. These people also can be a little bit particular when it comes to who they date and who they're in relationships with and who they marry. They have very, very high standards. They don't do the bull. They don't do the BS, okay? They want you to be genuine. They want you to be honest and loyal. Loyalty is huge to a Venus in Scorpio. I have a sister who has a Venus in Scorpio, and she has we're very, very different when it comes to relationships, because I have Venus in Gemini, like I said, and anybody who has an air Venus would kind of see Venus in Scorpio as too much, okay? Almost very intimidating, because Venus in Scorpio, they want to possess you, and they want to know what's going on beneath the surface inside of you. They're very soulful individuals, and when it comes to relationships and sex, it's all about your soul, okay? And Venus and Scorpio, speaking of sex, are highly sexual people. Very, very sexual. They would not be a part of a relationship without sex. They would not be a part of a relationship if sex is not involved, okay? They need a lot of sex. They have a very high libido, very strong sex drive, and they're very, very deeply sensual, and they love that deep intimacy, okay? These people are very romantic and very deep, and also very, very sensitive. So you have to be careful about what you say to a Venus in Scorpio, okay? Because you might say something and you may mean well, but Venus in Scorpio, in their mind, they'll see it as you being suspicious, and they'll think to themselves, okay, why is she asking that? And you may not be trying to do anything to harm them, but Venus in Scorpio is always kind of, you know, worried a little bit about people harming them, because they're so sensitive, and you can hurt these people because of how sensitive they are. But it doesn't mean that they make it easy. They don't make it easy, because they they have a wall up. They're very guarded. So, and their wall is very thick and it's very high. So it's going to take a little bit to get to that point where Venus and Scorpio is in love with you. But when Venus and Scorpio falls in love with you, they fall hard and they will literally die for you. They will literally sacrifice themselves for you. In a relationship with a Venus and Scorpio, they will search for your secrets. Okay, they will investigate you. They will probe you and ask you all types of questions about your deepest traumas and your childhood memories. They may not come right out and ask you like blatantly and direct, but they'll ask you in like a subtle kind of way. You know, because Scorpio energy can be very manipulative and, you know, very mysterious, and they may not just directly just say, hey, what happened to you when you were a kid? They're going to ask you more subtle kind of questions, you know, to kind of probe you a little bit, and then they'll take notes on the way that you respond to their questions. Okay, they're kind of like FBI agents and private investigators of love. These people are very intuitive and somewhat psychic, so they can see through your bullshit. They can see straight through your facade. Okay, if you're, for example, if you have a Venus in Leo, you like these big displays of affection, and you're very dramatic, and you know you like to dance around and be entertaining and everything. And Venus and Scorpio might be entertained by you, but they won't trust you, and they may think that you're fake, and they may think that you're overdoing it. You know, and they can be a little bit judgmental of people who have energy like that. If you're putting on a show, which a lot of Venus and Leo people have a tendency to do, they'll see right through it. And they'll think that you're trying to do something to cover up your insecurities. They won't allow anybody to get too close to them unless they prove that they're loyal and trustworthy. When you first meet a Venus and Scorpio, they may come off as distant and cold and disinterested, but it's not necessarily that. It's really just to protect their sensitivity. Okay, they don't want to give too much of themselves away. They like to be more reserved and hold themselves kind of against the wall and observe everybody else and let everybody else talk about their lives and their secrets and this and that, and they'll observe everything, and then they'll give a little bit of themselves away, if even that, honestly. So here's some words that describe Venus and Scorpio. You're magnetic, you're mysterious, you're loyal, you're charismatic, you're very emotional, sensitive, you're a very dedicated lover. You will be very dedicated to the one that you're in love with. You're powerful. You have a lot of powers that people may not know about. You have the gift of pretty much the power of the underworld, the power of the darkness, the power of the things that are unseen, the power of things that are secret. Okay, you have an ability to not only withhold all of your secrets from other people. People may not know a lot about you. You have the power to keep things to yourself. People won't be able to gossip about you too much because you hold so much of you to yourself. So you can be very protected in that way. You're, like I said, you're very observant, very analytical. You understand sex because Scorpio rules the genitals, okay? So you understand sex, and you understand how to please your partner sexually, and you know how to be pleased. You know what turns you on and what turns you off. You're very sexually aware. You're very sexually intelligent. Unlike some other signs like Sagittarius and somewhat Gemini, you're unafraid of intimacy. Okay, you're unafraid to get into that deep intimacy and to really show your partner through physical affection and through emotional connection what you're all about. You are not afraid to get deep. Some signs, you know, intimacy can be a little bit intimidating because it makes them feel vulnerable, but you're not afraid to do that. When you're in a relationship, you give a lot of attention and a lot of focus to your partner. And depending on the Venus sign of your partner, this may be either very flattering and very wonderful, or it may make them very uncomfortable, depending on your Venus. So if you have like a Venus in Cancer or Venus in Pisces, this will work for you. You like that because Venus in Cancer, Venus in Pisces, they need to feel needed. They need the attention. They need the affection. But if you have more of a Venus in Sagittarius or a Venus in Gemini, you need your space. You need freedom, and you don't really need for somebody to be too attached to you if you have like someone like a Venus in Sagittarius or something like that. And so Venus and Scorpio may be intimidating to you because you're like, okay, I get it, you love me, you want to make sure that I'm protected, you're very protective of me, Venus and Scorpio, but I need my freedom and you can't control me, because Venus and Scorpios can be also very controlling, and this is the dark side of Venus and Scorpio. They can become so controlling. Venus and Scorpio can be so devoted to their partner and so concerned about the well-being of their partner that they may forget to have fun. They may forget to laugh. and joke around, because they're so serious sometimes, especially when it comes to those they love. They have their little claws in you, their little Scorpio claws in you. Scorpion, I mean, they have their scorpion claws like sunken into you, and they won't let you go. You kind of like spinning around while the scorpion is stuck to your shirt or stuck to your whatever it is that, you know, they're attached to on you. You're spinning around trying to shake them off, but you can't. You can't. They have to let themselves off of you, because you can't. You try to reach down and get them off of you, and then they're gonna sting you with their tail. You can't. They have to remove themselves from you. They have to let go of you, because these people, when they love you, they have issues letting go of you. Okay, so for like an extremely dark side of Venus and Scorpio, they may become stalkers. For example, there's a few, you know, serial killers and stuff like that who have Venus and Scorpio. I remember, I think Ted Bundy had a Venus and Scorpio. Who else had a Venus and Scorpio? I know some other killer. I can't remember what other, it was some other serial killer that had a Venus and Scorpio. I looked it up, but I forgot. There's also some pretty awesome celebrities who have Venus and Scorpio. Leonardo DiCaprio, who's a Scorpio, Venus and Scorpio. Jay-Z, who's a Sagittarius Sun, Scorpio, Venus. God, who else is Scorpio, Venus? It's just a few other celebrities. Go Google it if you really want to know. So with Venus and Scorpio, these people, you know, they can have very good hearts, and they really want to make sure that their loved ones are, you know, at their best. But sometimes they may not go about it in the best way. They may go about it in a way where they say things that are very cruel and very blunt and very honest to you, in hopes that you'll change, you know, in hopes that you'll change for the better. And sometimes they'll just say it just because they're in a vindictive, you know, vengeful mood, because Venus and Scorpio is very vengeful, and they like to get their revenge, especially if you hurt them. These people will definitely seek revenge, period. Okay, and my final words about Venus and Scorpio is that this is probably one of the most serious placements for Venus to be in. This is a very serious love relationship, okay? This is not one of those fleeting, lighthearted, fun, joyous, let's party all the time type of relationships. This is a devote to me deeply with your whole mind, body, and soul, because I would do the same for you, okay? So, if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. Also, comment, but be nice. Be nice. Be smart. I like smart. I like intelligent. Be smart in that comment section, okay? And also, subscribe and share. Share to those who are interested or curious about astrology. This was Sydney Island. That's Island with the Y, not an S. Bye-bye.